Ferruccio was born on April 28, 1916, in Italy. He grew up in a family with few resources, but who were very hardworking. His father, mother, and siblings worked tirelessly in their vineyard to ensure good harvests every year. Like his family, Ferruccio worked in the fields from a young age, where he repaired the tractors his father used every day. This sparked in him a great passion for these vehicles. His passion was so great that as he grew up, he even sought to study something related to the subject at a university. However, a global event changed the course of his life and that of many others. This event was called the Second World War. As many already know, in this conflict, many of the great powers grouped themselves into two opposing military alliances. The Allies, made up of Great Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union, against the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan, who devoted all their economic, military, and scientific resources to this conflict. During this period, thousands of families were separated, as many young people enlisted in the armed forces to serve their country. This was also the case for Ferruccio Lamborghini. At the age of 23, Ferruccio was drafted into the Royal Italian Air Force and assigned to the Mixed Maneuvers Department for the repair of military vehicles on the island of Rhodes. A few years later, Italy surrendered and the Allied forces took everyone as prisoners of war, including Ferruccio and his companions. But in an unexpected turn, the army realized his incredible skills as a mechanic. So he worked for them for a while repairing machines until he was finally released. When the war ended, he returned home full of hope with his best friend Matteo, both excited and happy to pick up their lives right where they left off. Although Ferruccio was eager to see his family again, he first made a stop to see Clelia, the love of his life, where he declared the feelings his heart held for her. After a long journey, Ferruccio finally arrives home, where he is welcomed with tears and joy by his family, who are happy that he has returned safe and sound. In the afternoon, Ferruccio takes the opportunity to have a moment alone with his father, as he is about to propose something that will change their lives. He confesses that he has decided to move to the city to live with Clelia and start his own family. Seeing the disappointment on his father's face, he decides to tell him the rest of his plans. He plans to open a workshop to build tractors that are much more powerful, practical, and affordable than the competition. However, his father is completely opposed to this idea. Trying to reassure him, Ferruccio tells him that with Matteo's help, he will modify an old car with which he will win a competition. With the prestige from this victory, they will be able to raise funds from investors, and in this way, the production of their tractors will begin. However, his father still does not trust his words, since the country's economic situation is fragile. It is only just recovering after the war and he fears that his son will fail. But Ferruccio reassures him with the phrase, "I'll make it work." From this point on, Ferruccio was already showing himself to be a visionary. Even before starting, he was aware that after the war there would be a growing demand for tractors in the Italian market. So trusting his reading of the situation, he decided to go all in. Ferruccio is a young man with revolutionary ideas, with absolute confidence in himself and his knowledge. He assures that if things don't go well, it won't affect him, since according to him, the best way to fail is by seeking greatness. Finally, the big day arrives. Ferruccio and his best friend compete in a race that will take place in the Terra di Motori. Terra di Motori is an Italian expression that means land of motors in Spanish, and it refers to a region known for having numerous manufacturing centers of very prestigious car brands and for hosting events related to the automotive world. In fact, Enzo Ferrari himself is present and is the one who presents the award. This man is someone who will soon become important, so don't forget about him. The cars take their positions. Ferrari signals with the flag and the race begins. At first, Matteo is driving, but things get complicated when Ferruccio takes the wheel. Their obsession with winning first place causes them to have a minor accident, which immediately disqualifies them. This first failure affects them deeply because of all the effort and dedication they had put into the project. However, that very night, something will happen that will change their perspective. Matteo confides in Clelia about what happened in the race. She, who has always been by his side supporting him, encourages him to keep trying as she surprises him with the news that they are expecting a baby. This changes the game completely as it becomes the driving force in Ferruccio's life. Inspired, the man decides to go to his father's house to share the news and also to ask him for a loan. His father gives him the little money he has in his wallet, but Ferruccio, somewhat embarrassed, insists that he needs much more and promises to pay it all back with interest. Later, his father comes back with a document, which is the mortgage for the estate where the entire Lamborghini family lives, and hands it to Ferruccio with a gesture of trust he had never shown before. However, this time Clelia does not share her husband's joy. She even gets upset as she doesn't think it's fair to risk everything for a dream. This is an extremely risky decision, but Ferruccio's determination and mission to achieve his goal see no obstacles or possibilities that anything could go wrong. He can only see his dream coming true. Finally, Clelia suggests that he stop dreaming and, instead of spending that money, go to the bank and deposit it into his father's account. He agrees, but the next morning, instead of keeping his promise, he deposits the money into his own account to start the project in a small, dark workshop. Matteo and Ferruccio get to work on one of the first tractors. They share some of their ideas, many of which are quite ambitious goals. And when Matteo asks Ferruccio if this will work, the boy replies, "We'll make it work." While they're in the workshop working on the project, Matteo sees a truly beautiful woman getting off the bus, and he instantly falls head over heels for her. Ferruccio encourages him to go talk to her, but he's far too shy to even try. At lunchtime, they go to a cafe and see the beautiful young woman again. Matteo keeps staring at her, and his friend insists again that he go talk to her, but he's unable to speak while looking her in the eyes. So Ferruccio stands up and walks over to her. He kindly gives her a warm smile and introduces himself. She does the same. Right after, Ferruccio introduces her to his friend Matteo. Anita greets the young man, but once again, he's only able to manage a shy hello. Meanwhile, everything is going perfectly in the workshop. Both friends keep working hard on the tractor, which is almost finished now. It seems that what they've put so much time and effort into will finally pay off. At the same time, the baby is about to be born. Clelia has handled her pregnancy wonderfully, even though she has been practically alone the whole time. The woman knows that the day of the birth is near, so she asks Ferruccio not to come home late from work because the baby will probably be born around these days. This is when the story takes a sadly unexpected turn. We see that night, Ferruccio ignores his wife's request and instead stays to paint his tractor with the classic bright orange color. At the same time, the love of his life waits anxiously because she knows the moment has arrived. Finally, the logo for the Lamborghini badge is ready, so Ferruccio walks home to show his wife his creation. But when he enters, he discovers that the floor is stained with blood. Fearing the worst, Ferruccio rushes to the hospital where his wife is in the middle of giving birth. Clelia is bringing her greatest creation into the world, but she has to do it completely alone because her husband was so obsessed that he was late. The delivery becomes complicated and Clelia starts to bleed excessively. After long minutes, the little baby sees the light of day, but this comes at the cost of his mother's life as Clelia dies during childbirth. When he arrives, Ferruccio realizes that it's already too late. So devastated and full of regret, he curls up on his wife's chest. Ferruccio returns to the workshop, the very place that stole time away from the woman he loved. In a fit of anger and sadness, he grabs a hammer and turns it against his own creation. But before destroying it, he stops. He remembers that this orange tractor is his dream, the one he must keep fighting for, especially now that he has a baby to feed. When it comes to raising the child, he gets a bit of help from his family, especially his mother. Once the tractor is finished, Ferruccio goes to the bank to look for investors, offering his now completed tractor. He named this first model Carioca, incorporating a series of improvements that made it different from the tractors of that time. For example, it features a fuel vaporizer, an ingenious invention created by Ferruccio. This device allows tractors to start using gasoline, making it easier to start the engine. But once the engine is running, the vaporizer allows the tractor to continue operating on kerosene, a more affordable and accessible fuel. This technology not only optimizes the performance of the tractors but also offers an efficient and practical solution for fuel use, reducing operating costs and improving energy efficiency. In other words, Ferruccio creates a tractor that has twice the power, uses half the fuel of any other, and the manufacturing cost is much lower. Fortunately, he finds investors to manufacture 100 units, and when he shares the news with his friend, they both burst with happiness. Finally, they made it work. This news leads to a celebratory gathering with Matteo where they toast to the beginning of their greatest dream and also to the late Clelia. Later they see Anita, the young woman Matteo is in love with, dining at the same restaurant. Ferruccio advises him to go talk to her once and for all, since you never know when it might be the last time you see her. He says this from personal experience, as at that moment memories of Clelia losing her life overwhelm him. He feels so overwhelmed that he tells his friend he's going to leave the restaurant holding back his tears so he can let them out somewhere more private. While he's sitting in a small park, Anita approaches him and confesses that she's actually more interested in getting to know him than his friend Matteo. The girl sits next to him and they chat for quite a while until Matteo comes out of the restaurant and sees them, which breaks his heart. Disappointed by his friend's supposed betrayal, he leaves and never comes back. Despite Ferruccio's pleas to preserve their friendship, he refuses and demands 25% of the company. After losing two of the most important people in his life, Ferruccio throws himself into his work to escape the loneliness he feels. This will be one of the biggest mistakes he ever makes, and in the end, you'll see why. Ferruccio becomes so absorbed in his work that he manages to build his first 100 tractors, which turn out to be a huge success. The first Carioca tractors were offered to local farmers, and within a few months, the company was already unable to keep up with the numerous orders it received. Because of this, Ferruccio secured a bank loan and bought 1,000 gasoline engines from Morris and hired mechanics and workers to speed up the assembly lines. To give you an idea, the company started out producing one tractor a week, but thanks to the excellent product, it quickly ramped up to about 200 per month. And now he didn't just have one model, he started inventing new models to meet different needs. First came the first mass-produced model, the L33. Then came the DL30 and DL40. Technology advanced and so did Ferruccio's ambition, so with his company he designed the first crawler tractor, the DL25C. And And by the early 1960s, almost 400 people were working at the company, and between 25 and 30 tractors were being assembled each day. All this growth happened because he knew how to be in the right place at the right time. Thanks to being able to read the map well and working very, very hard. In a relatively short time, he became a multi-millionaire. He also invested in other industries, designing high-quality heaters and air conditioners. As his fortune grew, Ferruccio began to develop a strong attraction to racing and sports cars. By the 1950s, he owned a collection of 7 sports cars. Among his favorites were Jaguars, Mercedes, Maseratis, and Ferraris. But there was one Ferrari with which he had a sort of love-hate relationship. This was the Ferrari 250 GT. On one hand, its spectacular design caught the eyes of onlookers and it handled in an amazing way. But on the other hand, it had some flaws. When he checked the engine with his mechanics, he discovered that the problem was with the clutch, which was very similar, if not identical, to the one he used in the manufacture of his tractors. This upset him a bit, as it seemed incongruent to use the same parts when the price difference between the products was enormous. So, confident that he knew how to fix it, he came up with the idea of offering Ferrari a partnership. One afternoon, Ferruccio approached Enzo Ferrari at the door of his offices. He confessed that he was a great admirer of his work and that he also owned several Ferrari models even though they all had problems with the clutch. He proposed forming a partnership between Ferrari and Lamborghini so they could create the best sports and luxury cars in the world. Enzo did not take this well at all. He dismissed Ferruccio and insisted that the problem was not with the car, but with him, adding something like, "A tractor manufacturer is not going to teach me how to make sports cars," and then left without even looking back at him. That interaction ignited a fire within Ferruccio, and after that treatment and the repeated problems with his Ferraris, Ferruccio decided to design the best grand touring sports car the world had ever seen, and he was determined to make it happen. During a visit to a bull painting exhibition, Ferruccio was struck by the strength these animals could possess. Immediately, he associated it with his engines and his personal life. The strength and bravery embodied by the bull led him to choose the Mayura bull as the logo for his brand. Confident and convinced of his idea, that same year he consulted with his engineers about the possibility of presenting it at the Geneva Auto Show. Ferruccio insisted on having it ready in 6 months despite his colleagues' objections. He looks for a way to design some engine parts with aluminum so that it will be lighter and the car can have more power. Finally, after a long debate, he manages to convince and motivate them to give it a try, assuring them that if they fail, at least they did so while striving for greatness, just as he once told his father. To achieve this, he creates the first car factory under the name Lamborghini Automobili in Sant'Agata Bolognese, a small town in the province of Bologna, known as the Land of Motors. That's right, the very region that witnessed his first failure is where Ferruccio decides to build his first luxury car. On the other hand, Ferruccio begins to show interest in other young women, in this case, his secretary. Anita, with whom he had been in a relationship for several years, notices his intentions, so she decides to fire her without consulting him and look for a new one. While they are having dinner, she confronts him, telling him that it's not right to invest all the profits from the tractors into making a car. If it goes wrong, they will have lost all the profits and could possibly go bankrupt. From her point of view, there are already many sports cars and unlike tractors, the competition makes the best ones. However, Ferruccio interrupts her and assures her that it will turn out fine. At that time, some companies are shutting down due to fuel shortages and rising prices. People are no longer buying many cars and employees are going on strike because they aren't being paid well. Nevertheless, Ferruccio assures that he is taking very good care of his employees and pays them good salaries. With only 3 months left before the presentation, the design engineer brings the sketch he has chosen for the car. It's a creative and innovative design, but Ferruccio doesn't like it, so he asks him to start over. On the other hand, the engineer in charge of engine manufacturing also presents a model that doesn't convince Ferruccio, so he asks him to install horizontal carburetors so the engine can fit in the limited space available. One night, while having a coffee, he starts designing the bull logo for his first car on a napkin. Later, he takes the sketch to a logo expert to give it the desired shape. This is how the official Lamborghini logo with the characteristic Miura bull is born. The next day, Ferruccio gives an interview. He says that at the upcoming car show in Geneva, he will present the best car, the Lamborghini 350 Gran Turismo. He is asked why he designed a luxury car when the market already has so many, and he assures them that he does it in pursuit of perfection. Finally, the design engineer presents another sketch. This one is perfect. Everyone is impressed, and they are sure it will be a real success. The result is the iconic Lamborghini 350 GT, an elegant car with a curved front, pop-up headlights, a slanted wraparound windshield, and a large flat rear window that ends in a straight tail. Based on this, the work of shaping the parts begins, and his employees work hard on each one to achieve the perfection Ferruccio seeks so much. Then he attends a party with Anita and Tonino, his son. While he's at the table creating the sketch for his next car, a beautiful young woman approaches to talk to him. They both feel increasingly close until he puts his hand on her leg, trying to seduce her. Anita sees them and, very disappointed, asks for a divorce and takes Tonino with her since he has shown himself incapable of paying her any attention all this time. This is how, once again, Lamborghini ends up losing two of the most important people in his life. Nevertheless, the Lamborghini 350 GT is a success. It passes the test perfectly, and the next step is to take it to the presentation in Geneva in 1964. This particular event is held every year at the beginning of March at the Palexpo Convention Center in Geneva and features a very comprehensive program for car enthusiasts. Here, in more than 120,000 square meters of exhibition space, hundreds of innovative models and the latest technology are showcased. Finally, the presentation begins and Ferruccio's car steals all the attention, overshadowing Ferrari's. Ferruccio is asked how much his car costs, to which he begins a speech that ends with this iconic phrase, "You buy a Ferrari when you want to be somebody in life, but you buy a Lamborghini when you are somebody in life." When he finishes, he receives applause and ovations from the audience, and journalists take many photographs, drawing all the attention at the exhibition. Later on, between 1965 and 1970, Ferruccio decides to launch various models on the market, the most notable being the Lamborghini Miura, an innovative and legendary car that astonishes the supercar world with its rear-mounted engine. When the Museum of Modern Art in New York exhibits the Lamborghini Miura, it is declared the most beautiful car ever made. By the beginning of the 70s, Lamborghini becomes the ultimate symbol of elegance and luxury. He has already launched several highly successful models after managing to overcome various economic crises of the time. But after decades of success, everything collapses under the heavy blow to the automotive industry. The combination of strikes and a 300% increase in oil prices proves to be very damaging for Italy. And to show you how serious the situation was, let me give you some context. At that time, the 1973 oil crisis had a very strong socio-cultural and economic impact in Europe. Unemployment rose on a massive scale, causing a huge global recession the following year. And on top of that, inflation, which buried the growth of any economy. Even Ferruccio Lamborghini, famous for personally negotiating the contracts and salaries of his employees, is overwhelmed by the economic crisis of the time. Sadly, he begins to gradually sell off the assets that had cost him so much to acquire. A year later, he invites his son Tonino to dinner. Tonino has already started his own family, lives with his wife in a beautiful house, and they have 3 lovely children. Ferruccio tells his son that he will sell the company because with the new oil crisis, it is unsustainable to keep making cars. He tells him that 50% of the money from the sale belongs to him, and the other 50% is for his siblings. The conversation continues with his son talking about his family and what he has missed over the years. Ferruccio regrets not having been more present in the lives of the little ones. An awkward silence falls, and the father tells his son that he has been named Cavalier del Lavoro, an honorary Italian title awarded to entrepreneurs who have demonstrated effort and leadership in their field over the past 20 years and whose work has contributed to society. The young man responds by congratulating his father. He tells him that he is very happy for him because he has everything he always wanted in life and was able to achieve everything he wished for. Finally, he asks him, "Was it worth it, Dad?" Ferruccio senses the meaning behind the question, and as he tries to answer, his son gets ready to leave, because for their relationship, just like for his last goodbye with his wife, it is already too late. And to conclude the story, Ferruccio ended his life once again in agriculture, more precisely in some vineyards he bought before selling the company. Perhaps out of a longing for something familiar, perhaps to feel that he belongs somewhere, or maybe just to feel at home. Ferruccio passed away in February 1993 at the age of 77, but he leaves us a great legacy in the automotive industry that endures to this day. Currently, the Lamborghini company is valued at $11 billion and is owned by Audi and Volkswagen. But now Tonino's question echoes. Was it all worth it? Was it worth having consistently neglected his family? What is the limit of sacrifice in order to achieve your ambitions?